Random thoughts. In this video, I'm going to read part of Douglas Jardine's book, The Mad Mullah of Somaliland. And this is a book that was published in early 1920s. And it's a book that covers the Dervish Wars. These are wars that were fought by Mohammed Abdullah Hassan against the British beginning 1899 to around early 1920s. Now, in the previous video, we've seen Corfield adamant and really wanting to attack. He was even wanting to attack the dervishes at night, but he was told maybe we should wait. Now let's see what happened. The following morning now, at 4:30 a.m. the following day, the constabulary stood to arms, and at 5:30 at the break of dawn, they marched out southerly direction in column of groups with a Maxim gun in front. As soon as it was light enough to see, clouds of dust thrown up by the large herds of captured stock were observed moving in the parallel line with the constabulary. So the dervishes actually were not interested in attacking Corfield. Seems like they had the animals, they just wanted to move. But Corfield, with his men, started following them. A range of very slow hill divided the constabulary from the dervishes and their loot. But except for this hill, the surrounding country was flat and thick with bush. At 16:15 a.m., the advance guard reported they had seen dervish horsemen and commandant thereupon swung around in a more southerly direction, altering his formation into a column of section. On arriving at a place called Megalayer in the locality of Dul Madoba, i.e. the Black Hill, the order was given to dismount and the line was formed in action facing the approaching dervishes. An advance was then ordered and the Maxim gun being man-handled and the camels led by number threes in the rear. It had been the commandant's intention to move to a position of about 200 yards forward where the thick bush gave place to an open plain which the dervishes were crossing. But before this position could be reached, the advance guard reported that the dervishes were close upon them. The line was therefore halted while still in the dense thicket and the Maxim mounted in the position in the center of the line, the camels about 30 yards in rear, and 300 Olbahanta tribesmen on the extreme left flank. Summers advised that the force should be formed into a square, as he felt that owing to the overwhelming numbers of the dervishes, the flanks were bound to be enveloped and there was also the risk of attack in the rear. Summers is trying to give Corfield advice, telling him maybe even the strategy he's using is not appropriate for what was happening. But Corfield decides to do things his own way. Jardine continues, Corfield did not consider this necessary, however, and remarked that the square formation would greatly diminish the volume of his fire. Before more could be said, lines of dervishes appeared advancing through the bush 100 yards distant, pouring in heavy volumes fire as they approached, and the camels constabulary were thus committed to an action in irregular skirmishing line in dense bush without reserve or flank or rear protection. The action commenced at 6:50 a.m. The dervish attack may be said to have been delivered in spasms. At the first shot, the 300 Olbahanta tribesmen on the extreme left broke and fled, seeking safety in the dense bush to the rear, and was seen no more until the fight was over. The 300 Olbahanta men, who they had given weapons, ran away. They escaped. They left Corfield and his men by themselves. The dervishes, shouting their weird monotonous song, Muhammad Salih charged towards the constabulary in successive lines at varying extension, and each line, as it gave before constabulary fire, was replaced by one immediately in the rear. By this means, the attack was pressed on almost up to the constabulary firing line. As the first person died away, a number of constables from the right and the center dashed forward in their excitement in pursuit of the dervishes as they withdrew. Dan immediately went out, rallied them, and brought them back to the main body. No sooner had this been accomplished than the second spasm attack began. The right flank was soon involved and commenced a disorderly retreat to the rear. Dan and Sergeant Jama Hirsi made their frantic efforts to check and steady the men, but a number got clear away. The constabulary lost considerably in killed and wounded. Their morale was shaken, and 24 in all, or nearly 25% of the original effectives, thinking more of their personal safety than of their officers and comrades, found safety in flight, to be followed in due course by dismissal from the force with ignominy. In the meantime, the one Maxim gun had been silenced by a rain of dervish bullets after firing little more than 3 bells and did not come into action again. Corfield, who throughout had been in the thickest of the fight, made a gallant effort to get feed block out, and it was then about 7:15 a.m. that he was shot through the head and died instantly. As well-known Somali remarked, hearing the news of his death, better 1,000 Somalis had died than Corfield Sahib, for there should be, but for where shall we find another Corfield? Corfield died like that, and the other officers, many of them died. Several survived actually. So here is what the Jardine says about the actions of Corfield. He says, in considering his but I trust convincing narrative of the action at Dulmadoba and the events leading up to it, the reader should bear in mind that Corfield had no experience of the dervish prowess in the field battle, and he was therefore up to judge the dervish by friendly standards of warfare, of which he knew so much. So he says that Corfield misunderstood the dervishes. There is something he never understood about them, and he underestimated them. He continued to say, indeed, I have reason to believe that during the first onslaught at Madoba, he remarked that he had never anticipated the courage and its determination wherewith of the dervishes faced the machine gun and the comparatively disciplined fire of his men. So it seems like he did make a statement during as the battle was going on that he had never anticipated that. He seems to have largely underestimated the conviction and the determination of the dervishes. I should moreover be greatly surprised if anyone who has had recent experience of Somaliland and of the dervish methods of warfare would dispute the proposition that if Corfield, making full use of the mobility of his mounted force, had contented himself with harassing the dervish retreat, he would have recaptured most of the looted stock and achieved his primary object. But to express such view is to commit the heinous offense of being wise after the event. So he said maybe there is something he would have done and would have made the dervish to let go of the stock, but he says, we are just talking after the event and we are just giving opinions. Those are my random thoughts.